Hey, Chelsea fans, we are going to just do a quick note at the top of this one because obviously there was some very, very unfortunate and untimely news about Diego Jota and his brother Andre Silva passing after a very tragic accident, and the footballing world very, very shocked at that one. Great to see, obviously, the outpouring of support across all the lines for what is a tragic and unexpected loss of life, and we would just love from our community and from our show to send condolences out into the universe and as much positive thought and positive vibe as we can. But we'll get into the remainder of the episode here, but just wanted to put that out at the top.
Yeah, and just to say, Pedro Neto obviously crushed by this and carried their names on a shirt before the quarterfinal against Palmeiras. Huge amounts of love to him and to all of Diogo Jota's teammates. It was devastating to see. This is obviously a player and a person who is incredibly well respected. I thought, that the communications out from Liverpool were fantastic. Obviously, Oasis even paying tribute at the end of their first reunion show. I mean, this is one of those that like stops you in your tracks, and I genuinely, just wish the best for his family and his young kids. I mean, it's just a devastating thing. So while rivals on the field, this is no time for any of that nonsense, and we just want to pour our hearts out as the Chelsea community to what is just a loss far too soon for a really good player and a really decent person.
Well, with that done, we are going to get you into the remainder of the show, but we just wanted to cover that at the top. So enjoy the rest of the episode. All right, Chelsea fans, welcome back to another episode. That's right, of the London Smooth Podcast. Hope your favorite Chelsea podcasts out there and a part of the Man in Blazers Media Network. Dan and Nick here. And that's right, after a little bit of a July 4th weekend, Chelsea absolutely determining that they are not going to be dependent, but rather independent of other English teams in the Club World Cup, and advance to the semifinals against Palmeiras 2-1 on the good for that. Chelsea making their way in, facing the winner of either the PSG or Real Madrid match coming up too. The Chelsea are looking to find form here, Nick, to try and make the final, to try and win the whole damn Cup, and that's all we can hope for at this point.
Yeah, third Brazilian team on the docket coming up in quick succession. That'll be really interesting. But yeah, look, I mean, I think this game went exactly as many of us expected. It was a little shithouse. It was a little physical. It was full of contention. And, I think on the day, despite kind of be honest, lackluster second half, Chelsea did deserve to take this one home just on the balance of play. But look, it wasn't an easy game. It was a game where, both teams had key players suspended and or missing through injury. We'll talk about that. And we'll also kind of talk about some debuts and what that might mean for the old pecking order moving forward, Dan. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, we want to get into the suspension, the lineup changes that happened even minutes before the match kicked off. We're going to get into a little bit about Cole Palmer finding, again, that return to form, as well as Joao Pedro coming into the team and getting that debut. We'll also talk about, a future Chelsea player coming in that decided they were going to score against us to make our lives a little bit more difficult on the day. Hello, Estevao. And then we'll get into some transfer news before we talk about Chelsea's upcoming week. But as it stands, as always, we just try to give a little bit of a summary at the top of the episode when we have a match review. Nick, a 3-word match review. We're bringing it back. We've not been doing it in the Club World Cup just because, I mean, it's kind of felt a little fake to this point. But now that we're in the semifinals, we got to get serious again. We got to lock in. What's your 3-word match review?
Brazilian contingent grows. You see Andre Santos. You see Joao Pedro. And soon you're going to see one Estevao Willian make his mark at Chelsea Football Club. Very, very, very exciting stuff.
Yeah, I went with Chelsea declare independence because that is exactly what we're doing in this one. We're going to make sure that regardless of any FIFA fines or UEFA fines, that we are making sure to refill the coffers with the tournament winnings here. So let's just get into it, though. Top of it, Chelsea put out a lineup. Chelsea say Reece James is going to be starting. Hold up. Wait a minute. That's actually not what happens. And Andre Santos gets a feature in with Malaguso switching to that right back position, though you could argue it was really not a right back position with the way he pushed into midfield for the vast majority of the match. Nick, I'm just going to give it to you because you've been waiting for this. You've been waiting for the opportunity to talk about Andre Santos the entire tournament after selecting him as Chelsea's most likely player to impact this performance, this tournament. That has not worked out for you. Again, I picked Liam Delap. That has not worked out for me either. So we're both in a similar situation here.
0 for 2.
But
okay.
Yeah, I would love to give you an opportunity to talk about the Andre Santos experience that we saw in this match.
Well, I think first and foremost, you see Reece James get dropped or like training. You're like, oh God, did something happen? He's okay. He said he's okay on Instagram. I think it was like a precaution. Again, Zamareska says this after the game that he felt a little something in training and didn't want to or I guess in the warm up, he didn't want to risk it. And I think you are at that stage of this tournament and you are at that stage of the Reece James experiment where he has played a lot of football, compared to where he was. And if he feels something, you are better safe than sorry. Right? You do not want to push it over the line. We've seen what that looks like. Chelsea are dealing with no Moises Caicedo. Chelsea are dealing with no Romeo Lavia. Shock among shocks. Chelsea have a deeper midfield contingent than we did last year with Dario Sugo, Andre Santos, Kieran Dewsbury Hall, and Enzo Fernandez, of course. Enzo drops deeper. The question is who is going to partner him? And Reece James thought to be that partner, drops out of the lineup. And so enter in my king, Andre Santos, into the lineup.
Wow, he got elevated to royalty really quick there. King.
Well, look, man, I think he's pretty damn good. I think the stats would also tell you that he's pretty damn good. 89 minutes play, just a casual start out of nothing. Didn't even expect to play probably. 56 touches, 90% pass accuracy, 6 of 9 ground duels won, 3 of 3 aerial duels won, 1 clearance, 1 interception, 5 tackles, and some, let's be honest, some great passing forward in this game. I will be fair. The first 20 minutes, he looked nervous to me. He looked like a guy who hadn't played football for Chelsea a whole lot, which is the exact thing that he is. But as the game goes on, I think as the game gets more physical, you start to see the light switch kind of flip on, and he becomes who we, I think, understood him to be at Strasbourg and can understand his, projection to be at Chelsea. He just became a monster. The winning of duels, not a surprise. He, I think, dominated Liga in duels. Tackles, not a surprise. He had 110 last year at Strasbourg. He is a damn good player. And this notion that I think a lot of people have had that he can only be Enzo Fernandez understudy in that forward position was completely knocked back on its ass in this game because he can clearly play this pivot role. In fact, I think some of the in-game analysis that was done, I think this is some of the best analysis anywhere that I've seen, honestly, in-game for the Club World Cup on DAZN. Is you have, and I need to remember his name, and I'm so sorry, the guy who does a ton of analysis on Instagram. I'll figure it out and dub it back in for Jake. But he shows how Chelsea's formation has kind of evolved because there's been this thing where it's like is it a 4-2-2-2? Is it a 3-4-3? Are we kind of messing around? And there were moments in this game, Dan, where Andre's the lone pivot. Enzo Fernandez is gone. Malo Gusto is gone. It's just Cucurella, Colwill, and Trev and Andre kind of manning the defensive lineup. He is doing a lot of really incredible work in this game, and I think he showed people who maybe would have been doubting him, I should say, that, wow, okay, this is a really flexible type of talent. He can turn on the pivot. He can make the long pass in. We were clearly trying to overload that right side. We had a lot of those overloads work. I thought it was a great performance from a guy who had been overlooked to this point and then was called upon in a split second to start a game against a team that we knew was going to try and shithouse him, and they barely laid a glove on him. He was excellent. So sorry for the long ramble. You said I could do it, so I did it, and now I will pass it back to you.
Look, you were given permission, so not surprised. You took full advantage of it, much like Andre Santos took full advantage of the starting opportunity that he was given in this match. So well done to mirror your king in this regard here. But just as it comes down to card accumulation, we did have a couple players pick up cards in this game. Again, I actually think this was a little bit more... And again, the barometer for success is not necessarily too high. I thought at times this actually was a generally better officiated match than the last one that we played.
Agreed.
Except for a couple of the dumb cards for mouthing off, because this, again, to your point, was a little bit of a shithouse match between two teams that clearly wanted to advance. Liam Delap gets that card right before the end of the extra time in the first half, which sees him out of the semifinal, and then Levi Colwell gets his card later in the second half that sees him out of the semifinal. So just think about that. We now have a situation that we're heading into in the semifinal where, I mean, Nico Jackson will be back and available. You have Joao Pedro, who obviously has signed for the team, was able to feature in this match, and he now becomes potentially a more important cog for that final, this semifinal game. Also probably means that Cole Palmer's favorite player on the team, Tosin, is likely going to get a start over the now unavailable Levi Colwell, probably next to Chalaba. Obviously, we know Ben White Shield picked up that kind of hamstring situation.
Yeah, we know who the center backs are going to be on Tuesday. Like it's Trev and Tosin.
We have kind of locked it in there. So, I mean, just, kind of coming out of that really quick, though, it does feel as if, Nick, we have a very clear idea based upon the performance of this match, and then also, who is now available, not available, where Enzo Maresca will most likely go with that starting lineup, depending upon where all things are healthy, if not.
Can I just quickly say on the cards that were picked up, Cole gets one, probably rightfully so, for telling the referee he's a fucking idiot.
Yeah, I
think he earned that one. I think that one he knew he was going to get. I think with all the physicality that happens in this game, and I think this is probably where you're taking umbrage with the yellows, there were really bad tackles in this game that weren't given yellows. And then the shrug from Liam Delap, which is probably a borderline yellow, candidly, is called. And it's like, how are you letting the other stuff go in this situation? Like, I just don't.
He does have a bit of a Diego Costa style type of shithouse to him that
he's not as clever yet, though. He's not as clever.
He's just got to grow up with it, and we'll look forward to that, because, I mean, the push in the back early on to send him to the ground. I mean, look, I do love a little bit of, mental games being played in this type of experience, and he seems ready for all the smoke.
Well, and I also thought, in a game where you knew they were going to try and do that to us, almost like punching first was a really good strategy, because I think they knew they were in for a fight at that point. I think the Levi one, he's been doing a little bit of extras. Let's be candid in this tournament. I wasn't shocked that he was given a yellow. I think the one I took umbrage with was the lap, but I think these are all probably within the bounds of where we probably were going to end up. I think the bigger question that I see online, and I would agree with the format, is why is it 2 yellows instead of 3? I think that was a poor situation or poor rule that FIFA made for the tournament. I think that will probably be looked at after this, because a hell of a lot of players, creative players, defensive players, whatever, are missing these really important quarterfinal, semifinal matchups because of 2 yellow cards. I mean, it's not that hard to get 2 yellow cards. It's a little harder to get 3. So I don't know. I think that was kind of the situation moving back. I think as you look forward, Moise Caicedo's back, right? So you'd anticipate the lineup to kind of shift appropriately with him back in the game. Hopefully Reece James is back and healthy, because I don't think Malagusto was terrible, but I don't think was also great on the day in any regard. And then you have evolving transfer situations that might mean the front 4 gets kind of played around with a little bit and in different sorts of ways. So I'm intrigued by this, but you kind of know who the back line is going to be, assuming that Reece is healthy. you kind of know who the midfield's going to be at this point, assuming that Moises Caicedo is healthy. And then you just got to figure out who you want to play in those front positions.
We'll talk about players in those front positions after a quick ad break because we do want to talk about Cole Palmer coming back and absolutely just starting to find that form again that we know and love, and then Joao Pedro's first appearance in a Chelsea shirt. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Okay, Nick, it is a little hello to a couple players. One is a return, and then one is a brand new type of situation here. Cole Palmer's goal. That's a good goal. That's a real good goal. I like that goal a lot.
Very can I pet that dog of you? Yes. This was good to see. This was like Cole not getting frustrated by being triple teamed. He had to work his way through 3 people to score this goal. And I think there have been a lot of times in the last year where he has just simply not been allowed the space to continue the run, to get the shot off cleanly. And then when he does, he puts it perfectly. I mean, it's a great goal. The passing leading up to this goal was excellent as well. Mm-hmm. Really, really nice. Trev getting into that advanced area, pulling the trigger in the right way to make that goal happen, I think is really special. For those, of course, who don't think that Trev can pass, eat your heart out. This is his first open play goal since January 14th.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a when I heard that stat on TV, I was like, there's no way that's right. It was.
No. We lived it, Nick. We recorded how many podcast episodes? We lived it, and I knew for a fact how long it had been, and I was extremely happy. Given how close he's come in both the end of the Premier League campaign as he was starting to find his form again, and then also a couple of matches over the last, the Club World Cup games where he had several opportunities, and whether it was a great goalkeeping experience, whether it was just near but not necessarily close enough, it did feel as if he was getting close to finding that again. Obviously gets the assist in the last game, gets a goal now in this game, going to be very crucial. And I think he's going to be, obviously anytime Cole Palmer's on the pitch, he is the key man for Chelsea at the moment. And so I do think he is going to have the weight of it in this game against Fluminense coming up in the midweek. So it does feel as if it's good to see him back. Anything you saw maybe just in terms of, his positioning on the right, because obviously he did drift a little bit more central, but this formation has meant that he is playing more of a kind of traditional, wing role rather than necessarily playing kind of centrally as we saw in the Premier League last season. Does change where he takes his shots from, does change where he gets the ball or receives the ball. Does feel as if he was finding the opportunity outside the box to kind of, come horizontally in and open up those opportunities again for the goal, and then also to distribute to other players.
Yeah, he was kind of floating around. He didn't maintain that kind of forward role that he did against Benfica all the time in this game.
Yeah.
He was definitely floating off of the right, figuring out where to get central. I mean, the graphic that I showed, or that was showed on the TV anyway, that we have in our script here, at any time there were 6 players of our outfield 10 concentrated on the right to create those overloads, and Palmer was one of them. Sometimes he would drift in, kind of to his normal position. Sometimes he would stay wide, and Malo Gusto would drift in. Sometimes, like you'd get Trev Chalobah into that open space that creates the first goal because Chalobah enters and Palmer drifts centrally and grabs the ball and then does what he does. And then Delap sometimes would cut in on the left. He would kind of move out of the way for Palmer to fill in that kind of right striker spot. And then, Delap would go on the left, and sometimes it was vice versa. So it's kind of a free floating formation. You've seen this kind of popularized with PSG's big run in the Champions League where, it didn't matter. It doesn't matter really where the starting positions are. It matters how they flow together. And sometimes a player who would historically be off the right, in Dembele, for example, plays as the quote unquote central striker, but isn't a central striker by trade, but that's the position he takes up. Sometimes he's coming off the left. Kvaratskhelia would come in. If you watch that team play, it was so fluid and so interesting. And they all did the defensive work so that they could allow themselves to have that freedom. And I think that's what you're starting to see here a little bit, although at a much lower level. Mm-hmm. Let's be very candid. PSG's excellent. We're ascending, but not there. This is fascinating. I think if teams are facing a more unpredictable Chelsea front four or front five, whatever the hell it's going to be this year,
front seven. Let's go. We're gonna get completely upended.
Yeah. It will make Cole Palmer's life a lot easier. And the reason I say that is because it's going to be a lot harder for teams to put four guys around him and say, you're not going to hurt us. And instead, it's going to be, oh shit, where is Pedro Neto? Where is Liam Delap? Where is whoever's coming off the left? Where's Christopher Nkunku in this game, who I thought was pretty decent again? Like,
who's dialed in, which I think was a nice thing to see.
I think, again, we haven't seen that for a little bit. So, I mean, I think it just makes it a lot better for someone like Cole, who had a tendency to just play in the one spot, get surrounded by four guys, have to drop all the way back, not be able to get into those attacking positions. He then finds himself, and then he does the really hard work by beating three people, right? And like that's not something you can really defend against. That is just a guy being special. So
it was, I think, very funny that whole scary Nike campaign ad ended up dropping, and it had Cole being the Skinner after absolutely skinning the three people to get that goal.
Can I just say, Nike, after a period of time being pretty dormant from an advertising standpoint, they are crushing this like total 90 thing they're doing right now. The Cole Palmer ad's one of the best ads I've seen in some time. Like, it is so good, like really, really good and inventive and different. And that's like the Nike that we grew up with as kids. Like that's where they're kind of heading back.
Look, Cole Palmer is in the MTAs in the subways right now at this moment here. So look, it might be hot outside, but in the subway,
is it chilly down there?
It is cold, that's for sure. Talk to me about Joao Pedro, though. This was our first opportunity to see him in a Chelsea shirt. A little bit of a cameo here. Ends up getting 2 shots and 23 touches in his time on the pitch. 2 key passes. He only attempted 2 dribbles, but 100% success rate there. I think the first few minutes were just like anything, trying to kind of acclimatize, trying to figure it out. I like the look. I'm going to be honest. I like the look of just getting involved in. I think this is the education around that players are the most important part of what it comes down to when assembling a winning team. And as great as your structure is, as great as your systems are, if you have players that just know how to go out and play, I think it's very similar to Andre Santos just getting dropped in the lineup, like go out and ball, young man. Like it's very much the same thing for Joao Pedro. Hey, you may have only had 1 or 2 or 3 training sessions with this team, but you just need to drop in and you need to figure it out and you need to make yourself available. And I felt like he did that really well in the day.
Yeah, this is really, really interesting. I think if you're Nico Jackson, you're probably still on the naughty step for the red card. And so maybe I was a little surprised to see Joao Pedro after 2 days training instead of Nico Jackson in this game, frankly. I think we'll see Nico in the semifinal because I can't believe that Joao Pedro is 90 minutes fit yet. And I think that's like a pretty big task. But for a 30-minute cameo, not bad. Not bad at all. I was the one in the match preview. I was like, we typically don't bring players, first, second game in, and that's been kind of the opposite in this tournament. We brought Dario Asugo in the first game that we were in Atlanta to see, and we brought Joao Pedro in straight away to play in this one. What was interesting about it, I think, just from like a size and player profile perspective, he looks bigger on the field to me than I thought he would. Like, he looks more imposing, I guess. Does that make sense what I'm saying here? Like, Delap obviously he's a mountain. Like, he looks big. He has the broad shoulders. He's banging into people, like, that sort of thing. You kind of get the vibe for. I thought that Joao Pedro might look a little more lightweight, and he really didn't. He looked pretty intense and strong, and so I think just from like a line leader perspective, that's not really what I had on my bingo card there. But I was kind of impressed by that. I got to be honest.
Technically, he's actually taller than Liam Delap. Liam Delap is listed at 6'1".
6'1", yep.
And Joao Pedro is listed at 6'2". So, like, again, one is more broad and built up, as it were, like 90s action movie hero style. And yeah. And then the other is a little slighter, but again, that's if you go and score goals for Chelsea Football Club, I don't care about the build. I care about you going and getting the work done on the pitch.
But you also know what I'm saying. Like, some players can be tall on the measurements, but not play big, you know? And I think he was playing big. I think he sought out contact. I think he controlled the ball with a player like right behind him incredibly well. I think he looked for the right pass in the right moments. I wish he would have got a couple of clean shots off that didn't really come to fruition. That was one of the things that Jess and Nat mentioned in our match previews. He doesn't always get off the cleanest contact on the shots, and sometimes that scuffs or hits the player right in front of him. There's obviously some stuff to work on here, but for just being there for 2 days, kicking a ball on the beach in Rio and then coming to play in the Club World Cup a couple days later, I mean, it's pretty special, man. Like, I can't imagine being in that situation myself. Like, that seems really, really good on him for stepping up.
All right, so let's switch gears to talking about a incoming Chelsea player who we had to face on the day in Estevao. So you want to talk about saying hello and introducing yourself to Chelsea fans who may have not had a chance to see you play yet because they were not watching Palmeiras over the past bit of the season. You maybe were in attendance for this game and had a chance to see him play live, which I'm looking forward to doing in the near future at some point when he's wearing Chelsea blue and not Palmeiras green. Full 90, scores a goal, scores an incredible goal off the weak foot. I mean, that is the type of chance that you want to see your wingers take and make. I think Rob Sanchez probably feels like he should have done a whole lot better on that one.
Can I talk about that?
Can you please talk about it? Because I feel like I'm on the side of Rob Sanchez needed to do a little bit more.
Okay. When I first saw the goal go in, I was like, what is Sanchez doing? Like, he's nowhere near. The reason that he is nowhere near, and I looked at it from the other two angles that they showed, every other player where Estevao is looking is basically in crossing position.
Yeah.
And I think that Sanchez was looking at this going, oh, he's going to cut this back in the air, because he basically stabbed it, right? I mean, Estevao stabs this ball. It looks like he's trying to whip it around into the central area. I think that Sanchez was gambling. The ball's going to go central. I'm going to go meet it at the point of contact, instead of going, oh, he's going to take a weird angled shot from basically the byline here to try and hit it at goal. I understand why people feel like it's weird, but I think 90% of the time Sanchez is doing the right thing there. And this was the 10% that made him look like an idiot.
So I'm going to say that if you were betting on would he take the shot or would he cross, going up against the team he's going to come in and play for, going up against,
Come on. I think about it like that, Dan.
No.
It's situational football.
I'm thinking about he's taking the shot 100% of the time to really try and prove his point. Come on. I reject part of the narrative there, but that's okay. Let's talk about Estevao just in general play. I thought the battle between him and Cucurella was really good. I think it shows you how good he is, even at this current level, and how good Cucurella is too, because I mean, Estevao has played much better games across the entirety of the competition, and Cucurella and him had a really fun tussle between the two of them in this one. Definitely a nice introduction to one another, and those 11 versus 11 opportunities next season on the training ground are going to be quite contentious, I imagine.
I mean, first of all, the kid's special. Let's just put it out there like that. I mean, he is really special. I think the reaction you saw after the game, obviously he's coming to Chelsea. We've known he's coming to Chelsea for the better part of a year and change now, but the reaction from Cole Palmer straight away to go over to him, that's game recognized game stuff, right? The reaction from Cucurella, that's all right. We'll see you soon. We'll see you in camp. Bring a lunch. I think there was a little bit of, a little bit of cheeky grins throughout the game from both of them, which I liked a lot. There's a lot of physical play between both of them. Estevao got stuck in on Cucurella a couple times. He got stuck in on Colwell, I think, down on the the touch. Like that was kind of a tough one. So he wasn't backing down from the challenge, which I thought was great. Because I mean, he obviously knows what comes after this. He's gonna have to see these people again in the very near future. And then look, we talked in the match preview about like, hey, is he going to continue to play off the left? Is he going to play on his more natural right-handed side? Which I think throughout the most of the Brasileiro season, he was on the right-hand side doing damage that way and cutting in on his left foot. That was what happened here, and he goes up against a world-class fullback in Marco Correa, and I think they both acquit themselves well. It's one of those rare situations where they both do well. I think Marco Correa was very good in this game. I think that Estevao he's on his way. Like you can see why Chelsea are spending over the moon to get him in and to be special. I think everyone after the game who's cautioning, like, give him a second. He's going to need time to adapt. He's going to need time to adapt. It's not because he's not talented. It's because he's moving to a different country, different culture. He's going to need to settle in. He's going to need to understand what Maresca needs from him. He's going to need to understand how to play within the system. He's going to need to understand how his teammates pass the ball, where the spin goes. Like, there's just a lot going on that he's going to have to get his head wrapped around. But it's not going to be like he has to work on his right foot. He's very good. He's going to be great. And if we allow him to foster, or if we foster an environment to allow him to succeed, he could be really great. Like, that is, I think, what you saw out of this game, Dan. The talent is ridiculous, and he just needs to mature a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's just, think about that in terms of how transfers are working for the remainder of this summer, because like, he is coming in to play for Chelsea Football Club. He is going to be a contributor. I do not see any scenario in the world where he is coming in and we're trying to find a way to loan him out, because we're already taking up all those loan spots very, very quickly with some of the moves that we're engaged in right now. But I do want to get our last ad break in here and then talk about those transfers, because things have happened during the time we kicked off a football last, and then now heading into this week. At least there's some settling around some players that we thought might come to Chelsea, and there's also some players who got announced before the official announcement by just being on the pitch. So we're going to talk about all that, but stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, so the news and notes from across the weekend, Nick, as relates to transfers. I mean, I think the first and weirdest thing, I don't know if there's been a weirder announcement since the Antonio Rudiger kit video that came out. Then Jamie Gittins just hanging out behind Enzo Maresca in Chelsea gear with a little look to the camera before Chelsea actually dropped the official announcement. We did, though, because Dortmund have to announce information to their shareholders. We did get the announcement basically from them that like they were selling Jamie Gittins to Chelsea Football Club and that deal was going to be finalized. So like, everything was pointing in that direction. So no one is shocked or surprised to have Jamie Gittins around. And, I wasn't expecting him to be in Chelsea attire. I was expecting him to be on the pitch. And that's what we got in this one at the very end of, a Chelsea win.
Yeah, super interesting, because I don't think that Chelsea have made an announcement yet.
No, they have.
Right?
Yeah, they have.
Okay.
The videos come out.
Great. Cut that out. So like you're just like, I think the weirdness around this one, Dan, is like he's clearly a part of Dortmund's squad for the Club World Cup. They have no intention of playing him at all because they know they're going to sell him to Chelsea. He then transfers over to Chelsea, and like in the most understated way, is just on the field, peace signs up after the game. Super hilarious. Whoever caught that screenshot, you're hilarious. I mean, just well done. And look, we know obviously through the CFC Central scouting special that you guys did, like there's a really interesting player coming. I think there's a lot of things that Sam sees that potentially he needs to work on to become a top level talent consistently. But he's a Chelsea player now, so he obviously will not be playing in this tournament. He's cup tied and can't do it. But Yeah, really interesting talent there. And I think if you saw Joao Pedro playing the other night, he probably was getting a little bit like, I need to get out there. So those early August friendlies are going to be probably a great time for him to kind of start making a mark.
Well, speaking of making a mark and what Chelsea are potentially trying to do in the transfer window, David Ornstein reported over the weekend that Nani Madueke and his camp have agreed with Arsenal on personal terms for a transfer. We've also seen reporting several other reports that Chelsea are looking for an amount in the 50 plus million range for Nani Madueke's services and signature. It does feel as if, given what we're seeing in the market, what Chelsea paid for Gittins, what Mbeumo's going for, like 50 million does sound like the floor for a player, particularly an English homegrown player, to go to another team in the Premier League. Absolute bare minimum to sell. It is a very odd type transfer because I just don't feel like he's absolutely the player that Arsenal need. Just personally, looking at what Arsenal might need, I would anticipate other players. And it does feel as if I've always thought that the Newcastle situation would probably bear more fruit, both for every party. Like Chelsea get money for a player that they want to sell potentially. Newcastle get a player that actually helps them upgrade, and then everybody kind of wins in that scenario. It doesn't feel great, I think, reinforcing any team that you would argue is a top 4, top 5, top 6 competition in the Premier League. But if you are bringing in someone like Estevao and you think Estevao is going to take Nani's minutes, then you got to make some decisions somewhere here that are going to be tough.
So this one doesn't make sense on any level at all. This to me feels bad for everyone. So
alternate point.
we know. So first of all, he was our most productive winger last year. He's a guy that has grown season over season over season. Obviously, a lot of refinement to do as a player. He's been playing off the left to accommodate Pedro Neto being a lot more comfortable on the right. Maybe that was a signal to him that he wasn't going to be first choice heading into the season, that he needed to go find playing time elsewhere. But he's not going to go find playing time over Bukayo Saka on the right at Arsenal. And he's probably not going to find playing time over Martinelli or whoever they upgrade on the left with at Arsenal. And so heading into a World Cup year, he's going to lose playing time. Maybe that threatens his England position for the World Cup. And Arsenal, I don't understand what they're doing. I don't really care. I wish them the absolute worst in the world, especially with recent news. And they're going to potentially shove their young, talented Ethan Nwaneri out of the club at the same time for reasons that pass understanding. This doesn't make sense at all, especially when you consider that Anthony Elanga from Forest is probably going to go somewhere in the 60 million range, which means that should be the floor. Noni Madueke is a better player than Anthony Elanga right now. No, full stop. Noni Madueke, they're different types of players, but he's a better player. I have zero doubts about this. So you're potentially going to sell him for less than what I think the real market rate is, which is whatever Anthony Elanga goes for. And then you're going to sell him to a direct rival. He's not going to benefit. We're not going to benefit as much as we could. What the hell is going on here? Some transfers make total sense, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
Some don't at all. And this is one of those where I'm like, I don't know who really wins here.
So I just want to kind of highlight how Chelsea's attack is shaping up for next season. So you have Pedro Neto, who remains. You have Nico Jackson, who currently remains. You have Nani Madueke, who might potentially leave, right? So that's you're down to two attackers. I'm not going to count him if he's agreed to personal terms. You have Jadon Sancho, who left, so we're not going to count him. You have Nkunku, who is most likely going to leave. I think we're seeing rates of 35 million. So you're still at 2, Nick. You have Tyreek George, who would be available and would be able to stay. You have, we'll talk about him, Mark Yu is potentially available and can kind of stay.
Going on loan for sure. Yeah.
You have Joao Felix, who we'll talk about in a minute, who is most likely going to leave. Again, this is just how crazy things change season over season. Did I mention Mudryk? Mudryk not available, so that's going to be another one. You have Cole Palmer, who remains in terms of that. And I mean, that would be it of your attacking
Gittins.
contingent. Well, I mean, Gittins comes in as well. So like, so like you are starting to come back into
Joao
having a side. Joao Pedro and Liam Delap and Estevao. It's like you are getting close to having the right contingent if you remove out some of these players. But I could still see where Chelsea are looking about adding in one more attacker across the positions to try to balance out and give something of a different dynamic to the team.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think the goal for like just to like frame this up, because I know we're talking about Noni Madueke, but I think the broader scope of all these transfers is if you're going to sell a person who was a starter last year for a lot of the season, right? You better replace them with someone better. Like we should be in upgrade territory heading into a Champions League campaign than whatever the weird math is to get him and his wages off the books for whatever reason. Like if we're not upgrading, what are we doing? If we're not trying to be more competitive this year than we were last year, what are we doing? I don't know. Joao Pedro, I think, is interesting, but not a guarantee. Gittins, we have no clue because the Bundesliga to Premier League translation is weird. I think we saw enough of him in the Champions League to be interested in like what he could potentially do in that competition versus maybe like the Premier League. But he's still really right now the only bona fide left winger. Him and Ty, I guess, are the only bona fide left wingers in the squad. Mudryk not available, and Sancho gone. Like Madueke is clearly a right winger, kind of masquerading as a left winger. So it's a very, very weird squad balance, and I want to see upgrades. If you're going to replace someone like Noni Madueke, who I truly believe could be a special talent, you better have a plan, because if we're less competitive this year than we were last year, people are going to lose their minds, and I'll probably be one of them.
All right. Well, kind of then a couple quick hits around Nwaneri. So the interesting thing is that Arsenal are looking to re-sign the player, looking to extend him as he ends the last year of his contract. He wants guaranteed playing time. Chelsea and other clubs are interested in him. So just would be another odd one of, you let someone go who potentially could be better than what you have. I think they view him as an Odegaard replacement, which is, interesting. And then, I just want to say, like, quickly then the Kudus one, or do you want to kind of talk about Nwaneri first and then?
Nwaneri would be interesting. I mean, if we simply for the Arsenal head loss, I would be really interested in this, just because they would lose their fucking minds. They would be the conspiracy theories that you'd see would just be out of control. But at the end of the day, Odegaard's not played that well for 2 years. And if you're Nwaneri, you're like, well, I think I'm better than this guy. I've had sparks, I've had moments. Like, why wouldn't I be in the consideration to be a starter? It's because Arteta's in love with Odegaard. Like, so I think his camp put it out there. His camp's like, hey, if someone wants to come get our boy, we'll consider it. We're entering into the last year. So this might not even be one for this year. It might just be one for next year when he's allowed to leave on a free. And if you're his camp, you can go get some mega wages for a free transfer. I would open up the doors too if I were him.
I mean, look, he had 11 goals and assists across all competitions last season in 1,400 minutes. He had 4 goals and 2 assists in the Premier League across 11 starts, 26 appearances. He had 3 goals in their 4 matches played in the League Cup, and then he had 2 Champions League goals. So, I mean, if you're talking about a player who looks like they might be on the ascendancy, again, only 18 at time of recording as well. His birthday, he'll be 19 in March of next year. So you potentially getting another young player that is on the ascendancy after what looked to be a pretty solid season over season improvement for him and involvement in the side. Just you want more. And I think that is completely fair. You're a player. You can advocate for exactly what you want. Let's talk about Kudus. Nick, it does seem to indicate that all reporting is heading towards Tottenham for him. We're seeing Fabrizio, we're seeing David Ornstein, we're seeing others that Tottenham is the team on his mind. And look, if he's the team on your mind, go for him. That's perfectly fine. I want players who want to be at Chelsea Football Club, and he'd be fun and interesting at Chelsea. But if we don't go for him, I'm sure we'll go for somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, this made sense 2 years ago. I don't know if it makes sense for us now. I think when you picked up Joao Pedro, you kind of filled that second striker off the wing hybrid that you wanted, and that's kind of where Kudus fits. So I think the minute that we signed Joao Pedro, that was kind of going to be it on that one. So that one going to Tottenham, like going from West Ham to Tottenham, like yuck, but whatever. Do what you got to do. And, I would be interested in, other targets that have been rumored out there a little bit more. I don't know, Dan. You know all the targets. What is there? Was there one from Real Madrid who's still out there potentially?
There potentially is. Yeah, Rodrigo would be very interesting. Obviously, Simmons is another one that might be interesting in terms of player profiles that would excite Chelsea fans if they were to come in. One player who, though, does look, at least at this point, to be departing in some capacity if the wage situation can be resolved, is Benfica does seem to be looking for a way to say hello to Joao Felix and get him involved in the side, which would be a great way for all parties to end that experiment and kind of move on heading into next year.
Yeah, I mean, there's also Chelsea are looking at their young center back as well. So there might be some gimmicky stuff that happens here.
I think it'd be a great addition. I think it'd be a great addition.
Don't be shocked if that sort of thing happens, because they're saying the wages are an issue. So they need to figure out a way to not break the wage structure, similar to what Chelsea have dealt with, right? For a guy that they obviously love, who would be a homecoming for him, and player without a home needs a homecoming. So, I do feel like there could be some gimmicky math happening with do you go after the center back to make the wages work and all that sort of stuff. So TBD on that one. There might be Joao Felix plus V equals new center back sort of vibes.
Well, that kind of does it for where transfers at. I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about in the coming week, though, as Chelsea look to do more business, both from a outgoing and incoming scenario for Chelsea Football Club. Though we have to face the fact that Chelsea are going to be facing Fluminense in the semifinal. Takes place at 3 p.m. Eastern time, 8 p.m. in England on the day, Tuesday. It'll be at MetLife, which is in New Jersey, not New York. Don't let them try to tell you any differently. That's happening in New Jersey. And it does give us the opportunity, Nick, to play against Chelsea superfan Thiago Silva.
If you watched, because I watched the Fluminense and versus Al Hilal game, it was a very good game. Fluminense were a little bit better in the first half. Al Hilal were better in the second half. A couple moments of magic for Fluminense to get to the semifinal. This is obviously going to be an emotional one, playing Thiago Silva, who we all adore, and I think everybody, any team that had Thiago Silva on it, AC Milan, Fluminense, PSG, Chelsea, whoever, all love him. He's universally adored. He is an incredible player. I hope we beat him, and then I hope we give him a big hug after, and he's able to hold his head high, leaving MetLife and send Chelsea on to the final, because that is really the opportunity in front of us, right? Yeah. And I do think we'd be remiss here without just mentioning the terrible injury to Jamal Musiala yesterday.
Yeah.
PSG Bayern game. Obviously, this is a huge accident. He got crunched between two, Donnarumma and the defender, and it just was a sickening injury to see. I think everyone, including Donnarumma, was super emotional about it. You don't give that sort of reaction if it was an intentional thing. If you were really trying to hurt the guy, you're not going to go off crying off the pitch like that. It was a brutal bit of bad luck, and we all, obviously, Jamal Musiala was a former Chelsea Academy guy. We we wish him the best. Ollie Glanville's wanted him back at the club for the last 5 years now. So this was just kind of a brutal blow. But obviously PSG advanced. Real Madrid advanced in a crazy-ass game against Dortmund. And so PSG, Real Madrid, Chelsea, Fluminense.
How much does it, like, the way the matchups are lining up here and how the games over the last maybe 1 to 2 rounds change your opinion of the tournament? Because, like, I will say, I think we've started getting some really good football after the group stages. And as much as there's like hey, we didn't get great attendance at some of these games, you're forcing these players to play a ton of extra football. I will say I feel like the competition has actually kind of gotten good to watch, and given us some like really unique matchups that you wouldn't see regularly. Like, I mean, seeing Al Hilal like beat Inter, awesome. That's an awesome type of like advertisement for the fact that like Eurocentric type of viewing of football is not like like the way the Brazilian teams have played. Like, if you view as like, oh, the Premier League is like where only the best play, like you've gotten a chance to see and be introduced to a bunch of teams that you wouldn't necessarily watch. And I think that has been a nice thing out of what has, I think, generally been established as a cash grab to start. So, two things can be the same at the same time, right? Like, it can be a cash grab, but there also can be some really fun football.
Al Hilal beat City.
Sorry. Okay.
Fluminense beat Inter.
Okay.
Yeah, just to set that up. Again, I think the first round of fixtures got a lot of rightful criticism for the attendances and kind of the slow play and teams getting back into it after a few weeks off from the end of the season. But the actual level of the competition, the way the football has been played, especially kind of, I would say, like round 3, round of 16, quarterfinals, those 3 rounds has been really good to watch. I think that's also coincided with Chelsea playing their best football during that time. That round against Benfica, I thought, was easily our best game in the tournament. I thought we were a little less so against Palmeiras at the weekend, but all's well that ends well there. I do think that we're going to look back on this tournament and go, it was a moderate success, probably. And if Chelsea are able to make to the final, like, it'll obviously be a huge cash windfall for the club, who has struggled to put together anything commercially at all since the new ownership's taken over. I think they would be extraordinarily happy with that, over the moon, even, just given all the shenanigans going on. And it probably does put the team in a good position to start the year, if they can make it through without any serious injuries or anything like that coming through. I think the Musiala injury in particular kind of puts everyone on high alert for what is possible in this tournament from an injury perspective. And I think why Chelsea are being extra cautious with players who they think, who they know in Lavia and Reece James, players who have had long-term injuries, that they're not going to push it, not for this tournament, not for any tournament. Like, you have to protect the player. So there are freak things. The Musiala thing's a freak injury. That's not a tiredness. That's not a fatigue. That's just a terrible bit of luck. And then there are some things that you can avoid, like Reece James, like Romeo Lavia. When they do pick up a thing in training, don't push it. The money is not worth losing a player for a season, because it makes no sense that way. So I'm interested to see how the semis go. I think the semis are going to be super competitive, both of them. And I do think PSG will prevail, and I do think Chelsea will prevail. So,
and if that ends up being the case, Chelsea will be playing in the Club World Cup final, again, also at MetLife, which would be a very, very fun thing to see. I mean, again, the whole important thing is, if you're going to play in a cup tournament and you have the opportunity to do it, you should just go win the whole damn thing, which would be very, very exciting. It would happen on the 13th of July. So, don't book any flights yet, but maybe start to think about what you'd be doing if Chelsea can get it done on July 8th here. But that means that we do have more podcasts coming out this week related to actual football that Chelsea is going to be playing. So we're going to have a match review against Fluminense coming up on the Wednesday after the game. And depending upon what happens with that game, we may release our Joao Pedro scouting special. We may release a preview for the Club World Cup final. Who knows? But I'm hoping it's the latter of the two, because
What about the
that would
Ethan
mean
Wanyeri special, Dan? What about that one?
don't do that to me. Don't do that to Sam. Don't forget, you can join us on YouTube. You can like, subscribe on the videos, also comment as well. Let us know what you think about them. You can subscribe to our free weekly newsletter, The Lens Blue Dispatch. You can get involved in our Discord community. You can follow us across all social platforms as well. And that's going to do it for this one. But we appreciate you being involved, getting involved, staying around for this one. Again, hopefully if you were in the U.S., you had a safe and wonderful July 4th. And we will see you this week as Chelsea get it done, hopefully, against Fluminense and advance into the Club World Cup final. But until next time, Chelsea fans, you know what to do. Keep blue flag flying high.